Today, we're going to talk about a story that is just incredibly heartbreaking, but also, in a very small way, hopeful. It's about a terrible train crash, and we're going to look at it through the eyes of its very youngest survivor. So let's set the scene. We're in the Indian state of Chhattisgarh. It's a place that was about to become the backdrop for an unimaginable tragedy. Near the city of Bilaspur, a catastrophic train crash happened, an event that would, in the end, tragically claim 11 lives. But in all that wreckage, all that loss, there was this tiny glimmer of hope, a 2-year-old boy found alive. And this is where we really begin our story today, with this little boy, Rishi. So who is this little boy, Rishi? Well, he's just 2. He was on that train and somehow he survived. He wasn't unscathed, though. He had wounds on his head and his legs. Now, in the total chaos after the crash, something pretty amazing happened. Photos of this small, unidentified survivor started getting shared all over social media. And that's how his relatives actually found him, at a hospital just a few hours later. Can you just imagine that scene? His aunt, Archana Yadav, is at the hospital just waiting for his CT scan report. The sources describe her voice as just completely overwhelmed, surrounded by all the noise and stress, just praying that the report doesn't bring even more bad news. You know, to really grasp the sheer shock of what happened, we need to rewind, just for a moment, to the time right before the crash. Think about this. Just an hour before the accident, everything was completely normal. Rishi's dad, Arjun, called his sister Archana. It was just a routine call, you know? He told her they were just a few kilometers away from their destination. And then, the aftermath. Arjun, his wife Sheila, Rishi's mom, and Rishi's grandma Manwati, all of them were gone. And his Aunt Archana's words, they just capture the absolute heart of this tragedy. Life can change in an instant. A simple phone call, a normal trip, and then their entire world just shattered. So, in one single moment, this little boy's whole world was just turned upside down. He lost his father, his mother, and his grandmother. His entire immediate family just gone. And of course, it's so important to remember that Rishi's family wasn't the only one devastated. This tragedy sent these awful ripples of grief through so many other families. Let's talk about some of the others who were lost. People like Pramila Vastraka. Her son said she was on that train for a family reunion, one she had been looking forward to for a long, long time. A journey that was supposed to be about joy, that just ended in heartbreak. And then there was Ranjit Prabhakar, another victim of the crash. He was a labor contractor just doing his job, you know, traveling to see a group of workers onto another train. He was actually supposed to be back home that same night. So what happens after the initial shock starts to fade? Well, that's when the really hard part begins. This messy mix of grief, attempts at support, and this desperate search for answers. Right after the crash, an ex gratia payment was announced. That's a sum of money for the next of kin of those who died. The total amount was 15 lakh rupees, which is about 18,000 US dollars. And here's where that money came from. 10 lakh rupees from Indian Railways and another 5 lakh from the state government. But you know, for the families, this is about so much more than money. While he was waiting for the bodies of his loved ones, Rishi's uncle, Ajay Yadav, he didn't hold back. He said what a lot of people were probably feeling, blaming the entire accident on neglect. And this quote from him, it just says it all. The financial support is one thing, but the human cost, it's impossible to measure. Just like he said, the entire family had fallen apart. And all of this brings us right back to where we started, back to the 2-year-old boy at the very heart of this story and his incredibly uncertain future. So why is his future so up in the air? Well, his dad, Arjun, was an auto rickshaw driver. The family lived a really modest life. They didn't have any kind of financial safety net, and his death has put the rest of the family, the ones who will now have to care for Rishi, in a really, really tough spot. And this, right here, is the question that just hangs over everything else. Beyond all the headlines and the initial response, what happens to Rishi now? Who's going to raise him? And how are they possibly going to manage? And that really leads us to a final, much bigger question that just has no easy answer. After a tragedy that shatters a family right down to its core, how do you even begin to rebuild? It's a question that Rishi's surviving relatives now have to face every single day.